All right, out there, YouTube. It's the conclusion of the Chinese knives. Chinese knife comparison. Yep. So basically, I have managed to accumulate these knives. Now, I have 2 knives from each brand, 2 knives of each scale material. This is a twofold process. This is me trying to figure out what is my preferred scale material, and this is also me trying to figure out what I think of the Chinese manufactured knives in general. And I will say it's basically what I expected. So, quick rundown, we have the Byrd knives with FRN scales. Byrd is a kind of a sister company of Spyderco. We have the Civivi knives in micarta. Civivi's kind of the budget version of, or is the budget version of We have the Kizer knives in titanium. Kizer has high and low end knives. These are by far the most expensive knives that I compared in this category in this little experiment of mine. I have the Enlan knives, both with wood scales. I have the Bestech knives with G10. I have the Rough Rider knives with bone scales, and I have the CJRB with carbon fiber. So, not factoring in, my own personal preferences. If I don't like this or that, I'm not really a traditional knife kind of guy. I'm really more of a folder type of, or a locking folder type of guy. I don't really like lockbacks. I do prefer flippers. I like thumb holes. Taking all of that out of it, basing these knives just on their quality for what they are, at their price points, with their materials. What do I think are the best knives? So, I'm just going to go ahead and say Enlan knives, they are just straight up garbage. This one runs pretty smooth, but it's really not, it's really not a very good knife. It's cheap, and it was cheap. Now, because I just didn't want to talk about that one any further, I took that one out. These particular knives, these 6 knives, I'm just going to say if you are into traditionals, I don't think you'll necessarily, if you're into traditionals and you're looking for a budget option, I don't think you'll necessarily be disappointed with Rough Rider knives. I will say this much. I did learn in this process that if I'm going to get another traditional, I'm going to have it be just a 1-blade deal. This 2-blade thing really affects the ergonomics of the knife. But outside of that, the fit and finish is fine. There's just a little bit of a hang up here, but it's not sharp. I'm not worried about it cutting me or scratching me or tearing some clothes or anything like that. The fit and finish is fine, and I think it's a good looking knife. And at the price point that it was, in the $15 to $16 neighborhood, I think it's really, really compelling knife if you're into traditional knives. I'm going to leave these out. Set it to the side. That said, again, traditionals aren't necessarily my thing. CJRB, carbon fiber. That's not really carbon fiber. It's just what do they call it? Carbon fiber laminate over G10. These knives, They're finished pretty well. They look nice. They run on bearings, so they are smooth. They are big, and to my recollection, or at least in my opinion, I should say, just about every CJRB has some kind of non-traditional blade shape. I love the idea of CJRB, of particularly this one, but even my other one, the Stratos, I think it is. I like this as a test piece. Like I can learn how to grind a blade to change the blade shape of this. I think this would look way better if we took off this swedge grind and made it just more traditional Wharncliffe shaped blade. I would like to try anodizing the hardware. I'd like to try copper coating. I'd like to see how hard it is to drill a thumb hole into this thing. This knife with a thumb hole and that sheep's foot regrind, this would be, I think it would be a great looking knife. But at $35 or $40, this is a really nice knife. It's a good knife. I mean, if you want to spend 30 or 40 bucks, I don't think you're going to go wrong with this knife. I don't think you'll be unhappy with this knife, or any CJRB for that matter. It's just not my thing, though. But I do, like I said, I do love these knives for the aspect of, you know, practicing, learning how to work knives and mod knives myself. Instead of spending 200 bucks to send a knife out, what's going to happen if I dip that blade in ferric chloride and tumble it and reprofile the edge? What's going to happen if I grind off this swedge? How hard is it going to be to drill a thumb hole in there? How hard would it be to make my own micarta scales for this? I mean, these are flat underneath. I mean, perfectly flat. Anodize this hardware. There's a lot of potential in that for me to just play with. Kizers. Now, here's going to be the problem with the Kizers. The two Kizers that I compared were both titanium frame locks with S35 VN. And they were all, at a minimum, they were all more than doubled. They were both more than double all the cost of these other knives. And in some cases tripled. You know, I could buy 3 of what I spent for these. I could buy probably 8 of the Rough Riders, you know. Yes, you're getting updated materials, but you know, at that price point, I expect no bad edges. Like the other one it was razor sharp right up here along the frame lock. I expect no double clutch. Right, when I open this and I've moved the blade off, I feel like I'm good to go, but nope. You know, I gotta go back in that lock and put my fingers in the way. I would rank these knives, these 3 knives, in this order. CJRB. Now, let me clarify here. Kizer, if I'd bought a budget, let's say a Beglighter in G10, you know, that comes in at a price more somewhere in between the Civivi and the CJRB, I think I would have been immensely happy with that. But for its price point, it just kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth. I would say these are the bottom or, you know, 4, 5, and 6 out of 7. Oof. This is where it gets tough, because this knife is absolutely fantastic. If you are looking for just a super high quality budget folder, the Bestech Lion in D2 is a spectacular knife. I mean, fantastic. Ergonomics are great. The action is just flawless. There's no bad edges on it. No, you know, it's just finished perfectly. D2 and G10, you know, at this price point, I think I see them on Blade HQ for 50 or 52 bucks. I happened to, you know, I was shopping around and spotted this one on eBay for like 35, you know, and that's an amazing deal. You know, it's basically the opposite of the Kizer. Yeah, CJRB is just fantastic. What's going to put CJRB coming in third place here is that the other CJRB that I got is less fantastic. It's got several kind of nagging flaws to it. You know, the action is good. You know, for that $30 to $35 you're paying for, what was it, 12C27 or something like that, it's not a great steal. With G10, it's just got a lot of little nagging problems that I just can't get around. So that's gonna bump Bestech back, and it actually, the more I think about it, because of the Beluga. That said, the Lion, it's hard to say, because the Lion is better than both of the CJRBs. It just is. But these are consistent. This one is hit or miss. Now, top 2 finishers. We're gonna scooch these back now because I want more space. Top 2 finishers. For what they are and the price that I paid. This Byrd knife is utterly fantastic. I mean, the ergonomics on it, I will just tell you, after this, part of this experiment was me testing out the different scale materials to see which ones I prefer. Part of this whole Grail knife, Excalibur knife search. I don't like FRN. It's just a thing. I don't like backlocks. That's another thing. But the quality of this knife, this is every bit of Spyderco quality, and in some cases better. I mean, this is a Delica with a forward choil. You know, I would love to see a Delica with a forward choil. Like, it just fits phenomenally well in the hand. 8CR13 MOV steel. You know, it's fine for a budget knife, but it's not D2. Civivi in micarta. This is the Elementum D2 steel liner lock. The action on this is buttery smooth. I love the look, I love the feel, I love the action. This is just a really, really nice knife. This one was a little bit more pricey than the standard Elementum because of the micarta scales. And to be fair, I don't really like the way Civivi does micarta, but I think with G10, this would be a really, really great knife. It is a really, really great knife. But I think with slightly textured G10, even something along the lines of the Bestech, it would be truly special. Part one of this was to kind of determine who I think are the best Chinese manufacturers. I believe that if you're looking for budget, you know, and calling a spade, you know, the Chinese knives are cheaper. It's just cheaper. Manufacturing in China is cheaper than it is to manufacture there, or the process of manufacturing and exporting is cheaper for these Chinese knives than it is to manufacture in the US. It just is. You know, we're using, for budget knives, we're using the same or better materials, and it comes out at a better price. You know, I would put these two knives up against any American manufacturer with similar materials at the same price point, and I think these are better. I mean, I've got plenty of Kershaws, I've got plenty of Schrades and all the gun brands, the Bucks and the Brownings and the Colts and the Smith & Wessons, and I got plenty of Gerbers, CRKTs. I've got plenty of these knives, and yes, I recognize that a number of them are still manufactured in China. These are better. I would actually venture to say all 6 of these are probably better. You know, is the Rough Rider better than a Case or a Great Eastern Cutlery? No. Is the Kizer better than a ZT or a Benchmade? No. Are any of these better than, you know, ZT, Benchmade, Spyderco? No. But for what they are and their cost, their price points, they are fantastic. And if you're out there looking for a budget knife just to use as a tool for opening boxes, cutting tape, opening letters, cutting string, ropes, whatever, I don't think anybody would be disappointed with any of these knives. That said, if I'm going to rank them, I would actually rank them in this order. Now, second part of this process was to figure out some things like, do I prefer a flipper tab, or a thumb hole, or a thumb stud, or a nail nick? Do I prefer micarta, or FRN, or carbon fiber-ish, or bone, or titanium, or G10? And I'm kind of, to be fair, you know, I kind of knew a lot of this stuff before I even started this process. I love micarta. I really like G10. I like carbon fiber when it's done right. I like the look of it. I like the feel of it when it's done right. I don't really like FRN. I don't really like any of the metals. And I mean, bone's a very limited pathway. I prefer thumb. I almost insist on a thumb hole. Like, of all the things that are most important to me in the way I interact with the knives, I'm almost always going to choose a thumb hole if that's an option. You know, secondary to that, between a flipper tab and a thumb stud, I'm kind of 50-50. Nail nicks, not so much. Again, I'm not really a traditional kind of guy, although I do appreciate their aesthetic qualities. So that's pretty much where we're at. I would say Civivi, Byrd, CJRB, Bestech, those can almost be interchangeable. Kizer definitely deserves to be in the top 5. And if you're looking for a traditional, make sure you give it a test run first. Same with the Bestech, make sure you give it a test run first. Make sure that it's not gonna have a hot spot back here. Make sure that the clip doesn't look all wonky. Make sure it's not pinchy when you're closing it. When you go to look for a knife, look at areas like this for hot spots, for sharp edges. But yeah, I would definitely say I'm going to get a Byrd in G10 with a liner lock. But yeah, I learned a lot here on this. So sorry, my family keeps coming out to the garage. I learned a lot in this process about my own personal preferences. Of the things here, I mean, one thing I don't have in this setup is any of the more modern locks, like a compression lock or an axis lock, anything like an axis lock. Most of these are going to be your frame locks or liner locks. I don't really like back locks. I don't really like slip joints. But that's about it. That is the investigation on Chinese knives, part 8, conclusion. The next videos, I'm gonna start talking about one of the knives that lets you know you've got a problem, and continuing in the search for the Grail. Spyderco Tenacious. Oddly, still the Chinese knife. So if you guys have any comments or questions, leave them down below. Have a great night.